What's going on social media? Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thank you guys so much for being here. People hopefully pop in and out throughout the night. As of right now, it is just Jacob and myself. We pushed the show a couple nights this week because, we're adults and old, and well, Jacob and I are old anyway, and stuff had to happen earlier this week. So we pushed the show, and we've got a few things to talk about. And we're going to jump right into it. So stick with us here for just a moment. What is my laptop doing? Okay. And we'll get right into our show this week. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Somos Mas, the official podcast of Somos Mas NM, and your source for latest news and notes on New Mexico United. My name, of course, is Seth Bidoff. Joining me tonight, we have Jacob Terrell. Earl is not with us tonight. He may or may not pop in. I don't know. He hasn't responded to our texts, but we'll see. He might pop in. If not, that's okay. Earl may just need a week off. But anyway, we are here. We're ready to talk about some stuff. No real housekeeping tonight. So, Jacob, I do have one burning question for you. How do you feel about Detroit City?
Indifferent? Is that okay? Is that okay to be a USL fan?
I guess you can be indifferent on that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the USL is doing, what they're thinking, as far as how many teams they're going to have or how few teams they're going to have or anything like that. So until it all gets kind of ironed out, then I'm just going to say, cool, another team, kind of like Oakland or Miami, that has a history already, and they're coming into our league, and hopefully that just makes our league a little more better and a little better and a little more sustainable.
Aaron, how you doing tonight? Thanks so much for popping into the chat. Great question. We will get to that here. We'll get to that question here in just a minute. Right now, we are talking about Detroit City FC and the announcement this week that they will be joining USL Championship in the 2022 season, coming over from Nisa. They are, of course, fairly well known within the independent or within the lower league soccer communities. And you see their history, season champions for 2020-21, the 2021 champion, the fall 2020 champion. They won the Legends Cup this year. I mean, they've been successful in every league that they've been in so far. And so this caused kind of a bit of a shitstorm over on Twitter, and it probably did across other social media outlets as well, because their announcement came out, and then the word from Nisa was kind of I don't know if you saw the Nisa.
I heard about it. I did not read it officially, but
it was pretty petty, if you ask me. And so, like, I get it. This is a big blow for Nisa. I mean, it's one of their premier clubs, and so losing them to the USL Championship, I imagine that's going to hurt. And fortunately, a friend of ours, Ram Patel, put out a tweet later on saying that he wished them the best. And while the statement and the announcement could have been handled better, but he felt like it was a good move for them, and he wished them the best. And so I'm excited by this. I'm excited for the potential for a trip to Detroit. I'm excited by the potential for another club that has proven roots and has moved up steps within the soccer pyramid to see what they can continue to do here in the next few years.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. It has potential to be a really good move. Hopefully they have their shit together, unlike Oakland and Miami did in their first seasons, and hopefully they can come up and make some noise right away. And I'm not sure why you'd be excited about a trip to Detroit, but hey, to each their own.
They supposedly have a pretty significant supporters group over there, and they sell quite a few tickets to their matches every week.
That they do. I understand that. The city of Detroit isn't exactly like calling my name. So like San Diego, yeah. I go to San Diego every day. Detroit, a little bit different than San Diego.
Yeah, looking at their attendance numbers, in 2019 they averaged, over 6,300 fans in attendance there, 5,400 in 2019, 2020. I don't think they had fans last year, and then this year they averaged around 4,300 fans. So they appear to be a pretty good, club that draws well, and they seem to have their shit together. And I know Oakland started out rough, but things look pretty good for Detroit City coming in.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to these two questions real quick.
Yeah, there's some great questions here from Aaron.
First, the original USL table comeback. I'm assuming that means just East West, and that's it. I'm assuming that's what you mean by that, Aaron. If you mean something else, go ahead and clarify in the comments. But I don't know what I obviously don't know what they're going to do because it's the USL and nobody knows what the USL is going to do at any given moment until the USL does it. I don't know if I want it to come back. Like, I kind of like the ability to play Eastern Conference teams. And I feel like if we went back, to just the East and West, we would lose that ability because we would have to play everybody in the West, presumably 2 times, which would put us at that 30-game mark already. So maybe we'd play like 2 people, 1 person in the East, and that just doesn't sound right. So, Seth, how about this? How about we let the USL teams do like college football does and schedule their own opponents? And then we have a committee that looks at resumes and actually picks the top 4 teams based on those resumes.
Based on the eye test?
Yeah, the eye test and like, okay, well, yeah, they're undefeated, but they played Hartford and Real Monarchs twice, and or we have everybody play everybody in the West, and then for our other 17 games or whatever it is, then it's free for all. That's what I think we should do.
Interesting. From my point of view, I think we do go back to just plain straight East-West next season. Yeah. And especially over the next 2 years when you've got all these MLS clubs leaving. And yes, we are going to have some more clubs coming in. We've already talked about Detroit City. You've got Queensboro that's pushed back their start date to 2023 now, and some others that are coming in over the next 2 seasons. I think what that does is you still have potentially unbalanced conferences. And so if you're looking to play that 34 match schedule, then you're going to have, let's say you have 15 teams in each league, in each conference right now. That gives you 4 opportunities, I should say. 6 opportunities, because you play 14. Yeah, 6 opportunities to play interconference matches, and I think that's fantastic. Like, I think you can still do the 2 conferences and get that out of conference play. So there's ways to do it, and maybe you have kind of like a rotating schedule every year, to where if you did have the full complement of clubs, to you have 17 in each conference, that maybe you play 14 teams twice, and then 2 other teams once each. I know it's a little bit strange, but that's how they do it. I think they do something similar in like the NBA, right?
Well, the NBA is broken into conferences or divisions.
They do have the divisions, yeah.
So you play your division like 7 times, 6 times, something like that. You play your division more, and then you play your Western Conference more, and then you play your conference more, and then you play the other conference, I think, just once or twice. So it just depends. But I think
the SEC does that too, or at least the SEC, ACC, because of the teams that they have. They only play so many Western division teams.
They've got 2 divisions,
every year. Yeah. So I think they do so many, like, in the division, and then they play the other conference.
It's going to depend on how many games they want the teams to play. If they want it, because we didn't play 34 in year 1.
Yeah,
I think it was just 32.
That was 34.
Okay, maybe they want 34 then. I thought there were 3 different numbers we've had all 3 years, but
Well, yeah, technically it is 3 different numbers all 3 years, but
what would he play this year?
We only played 32.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's where I was getting confused. I don't know. It depends on what they want to, how many they want to play, and then with a team or with a league like ours, you got to factor in budgets and travel budgets and stuff like that. So it just depends on how they want to do things. And COVID, like it or not, is still going to be a factor for the foreseeable future, at least. So it's tough. And then as for your second question there, Aaron, any USL team right now that deserves an MLS promotion, is the MLS a promotion? I mean, you see FC Cincinnati, and yes, their attendance ballooned because they were a quote unquote bigger deal. But if they don't figure their crap out, they might not exist because they are not very good in MLS. And if they don't turn that around and start performing at least like decently, then I think they might be in trouble. So I think if, with the way you worded your question, if there's a team that deserves to be in the MLS, probably Phoenix. I mean, they have a decent fan base that probably could balloon with a I'm not going to say promotion because that doesn't work in this to me. With a switch to MLS, I think their attendance could just absolutely go through the roof. And they seem to be really well run, at least as far as getting players in there and being at least in the regular season. Thank you, Oakland. Or not Oakland, sorry, RGV. Thank you, RGV. At least in the regular season, they are always up there, at least since we've been in the league. So probably Phoenix. I don't know about New Mexico. I just don't. I don't think we're quite ready. Yeah, I don't think we're quite ready for that, even if we wanted it, and I don't personally want it. And so yeah, Phoenix would be my answer to your actual question. I just don't know if any teams actually want it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you look at the clubs over the past couple of years and how they've performed and who the most consistent performers are, and Phoenix is the one that pops off the page. I think Phoenix could make the move to MLS. I think they could be sustainable. I think they could perform better than FC Cincinnati at least. But they're obviously not going to go to MLS in 1 year and be top of the table. It's just not going to happen, But if there are any clubs that could potentially go there and compete, Phoenix is the one that pops off the top of my head. Lou City potentially. If you'd asked me last year, I would have said Reno. Reno could have potentially gone up and competed, but since it's all a matter of buying your spot in the league, I mean, really anybody could do it. I think San Antonio has a shot to do it in the future, but the Texas market's getting awfully crowded with MLS clubs. And then you've got Sacramento. Sacramento had the opportunity to go, but then investors fell through. So, there are a few teams that I could see going up and competing within the first couple of years, but you're not going to have anyone go up and just dominate. It's going to take them a few years to be competitive. And for FC Cincinnati's sake, I really hope they turn it around. And it's a good thing that we don't have ProRel in the U.S. for their sake. So great questions, Aaron. Thanks for those. Appreciate that. It's an interesting prospect. It's an interesting idea to think about teams that could potentially go up and compete at the MLS level. People talk about us potentially going MLS. I'm like, that's a ways off. That's going to be, if that were a possibility, I would say 5-10 years down the road, probably closer to the 10-year mark, just so that we can become better established and, make sure we have consistent draw, in a normal capacity year, and that we're competing at the highest level possible year in and year out before we even consider that move. So I think it's going to be a while.
But do you have to be competing at the USL level?
Well,
or do you just not have to be terrible? Like, what are we looking at as far as deserves? Is it are you more deserving of an MLS move because you have fans? Are you more deserving of an NFL or MLS move because you have a good front office? Are you more deserving because you have a good team? Like, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive with Nashville and FC Cincinnati, they made like wholesale changes when they moved to the MLS. Like,
yeah, they did.
So I think I'm not sure exactly what Aaron is looking at here, but from my point of view, in order to make the move, you have to have a market and you have to have a fan base. And you have to be at least somewhat decent at your job. Like, you can't just, like, if Vegas wanted to move up, I don't know if I'd be like, yeah, I mean, they have a market. Vegas is a good market, and it's a booming sports market right now with the Raiders going there. They have a WUSL or double WNBA team there. I could see that sports market blowing up, but Vegas is just so poorly ran and is such a circus act that I don't see that happening. Plus, with their connection to LAFC this last year, but like, you look at Phoenix, they've got a market, they've got a fan base, they've been properly run, but you need investors. Like we talked about with Sacramento, they had a chance, they lost investors. But I could see people looking at Phoenix and going, investors looking at Phoenix and going, yes, this is it. This is a fan base and a team that I will support financially to get into the MLS. So maybe Louisville City, but I'm not sure there's much more in their market that they can do. I feel like they might have reached the top of it there.
Yeah, that's going to be tough there in terms of generating additional, additional growth in the fan base. And I mean, yeah, there's really not much in that market. But, you're right. You have to look at it, I think, from a couple different perspectives, one of which being, is a team competing at a high enough level? Because especially if you're going to take the player base that you currently have, you want to show that they are, like I said, highly competitive. I think this Phoenix Rising roster could go up and compete. Now, would they make the playoffs? Probably not. They would obviously still bring players in, but
I don't think our rosters matter here. Nashville had one guy in Daniel Rios that really stayed with them when they made the move, and he doesn't play all that much. Same with FC Cincinnati. You had McLaughlin that went up with them, and he played very little in year one, and now he's back in the USL. So I'm not factoring rosters into this at all, except for the fact that I look at the front office and say, were they making smart and good moves? And if the answer to that is yes, then okay.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely factors into it as well. If you've got a good enough front office and they're willing to make that jump, willing to put in the commitment for it, put in the investment, and then show a willingness to go out and purchase players that can be competitive at the next level, then yeah, by all means. And you factor in, fan base, the growth, and, you've got to have all these. I think everything factors into it at least a little bit, because if you want to just buy into MLS and you don't have a fan base, like, you're going to run stuff like you've got out with Charlotte, where the ownership group is trying to run the supporters group, like, you run into stuff like that, or you run into, like, I think it was FC Cincy that printed out at their tifo. Like, you get all these weird things that happen when you don't have enough support.
For sure, that was Nashville, actually.
That might have been that. Yeah, I think I was Nashville. I get my teams mixed up, but you got some more comments over in the chat. Aaron, we'll get to this one here in just a second. Shania, I hope we're pronouncing that right. Just tuned in, not sure if it's spoken about. What's our take on USL Championship newest edition in Detroit? How do you feel they'll stack up against New Mexico and other teams in USL? So we did talk about it a little bit earlier. I'm excited for it. Jacob, he's kind of on the fence. It's kind of a wait and see type deal. But I think they're a proven club, like we talked about earlier. They're a proven club. They've done very well at NISA and all their other stops along the way. Looking at because I imagine they'll be in the Eastern Conference. If the conferences stay the way that they are now, broken down into divisions, they would probably slot into, I guess, to be the Central Division, would be my guess. And that would be interesting. That would be really interesting to see. I could see them being a playoff contender year one. Because they've got a well-constructed roster. They've got guys that come out and play, and they've just torn up NISA. So a lot of things to look at there. And how do they stack up against United? I don't know, man. I don't know, because NISA and their broadcast packages aren't great. So it's hard to kind of keep track of what they're doing and where they're at and see how they play. So I think it would be interesting to see. I would love to bring them out here for like a friendly or something, or a preseason match, to kind of get a look at them, to see how they play and see how they perform against our guys. And so a lot of good questions. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll chime in real quick with how I think they'll stack up against New Mexico. And I'm not meh about it. I'm just like, the blow up that has happened in the USL fans feed on Facebook and on Twitter and all this I'm just not about that. I mean, it's a quality club coming to the USL, which I think is a good thing, but I'm not like wanting to rip my shirt off and celebrate with them coming or get mad about them coming. So just to clear that up. But as far as how they'll stack up, we're not going to know, because we don't even know what New Mexico is going to look like next year. We know we have confirmed. I think we just have the 3 players, right? Is it just Kalen, Moreno, and Wehan that we like officially know for sure?
Oh, guys still under contract. I think Armando is as well.
I said Mondo. I said Moreno.
Yeah, Armando, Bees, Kalen. Yeah. I think
those are the only 3 that they announced like as signing as an extension.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure. We might have some others on 2-year contracts, or maybe they were on a 1-year team option. So, but we know we have 3 players. That's it. And as far as Detroit, I haven't seen them play. I don't know anything about their players, but my guess is they're probably going to have some players change, and they're probably going to make some additions, and so we will tackle that question. I think we'll have a better idea of that question, come February, March-ish, when we're starting preseason and stuff.
Yeah, it's, some good points there. We'll have to just have to wait and see. I mean, at this point, we don't know anything. It didn't take long last year for the club to announce the first few rounds of folks coming back for the next season.
Last year took freaking forever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, last year did.
It was after the first year, they were like, "Hey, here's 13 people coming back." Bam, one post. But last year they drug it out to where it was like, "Hey, tune in tomorrow, 12 o'clock. We got a surprise for you." And then they would put a graphic with some hints and say returning player. Please, New Mexico United, don't do that. Just don't. Just put all the returning players out there so we know what the heck we're doing, and then start signing new players like ASAP.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of stuff that's up in the air this offseason. We've already kind of mentioned it a little bit. We're looking for a coach. We don't know what the player contract status is. Hashtag USL transparency. Thank you very much. So go back to this question from Aaron here. Should United keep an eye on Kevon Frater this offseason? I'll be honest with you, Aaron. No, I really don't think so. especially with a new coach coming in. And really, Kev has not done a lot since he left the club. He's bounced around a little bit. He hasn't really featured anywhere. He spent like half a season in India, half a season in like the Israeli Premier League. So he hasn't really done too much. And I don't think he's on anyone's watch list this offseason. I mean, Jacob, unless you can think of any reason why the club would want to keep an eye on him, especially since we don't even know who the new manager is going to be yet.
Because we need somebody that can score, Seth. And he's been the only player that has come in other than Wehan. But even Wehan plays a little bit plays a slightly different position than Kevon. I think if we had a Kevon, had Wehan, had Moreno, hopefully Dev can come back in some sort of capacity on the field. And had somebody that can actually finish. I don't really care what he's done in other leagues because I don't know enough about those leagues to be like, oh well, he should have been tearing it up in those leagues. Some people are just more comfortable in certain leagues. Mm-hmm. We see that all the time. So I think the USL is very well suited for him. I think he had a place here in New Mexico that tolerated some of his annoying behavior. While also cheering for him. And I just think that if there's a player that has performed well in the USL at a striker position and still has anything left in the tank, United should at least have them on their radar. So I'm not necessarily saying should they bring him back. Maybe. It depends on his mindset and if he would come in here and want to perform like he did before, then sure, why not? But they definitely should at least have an eye on him and say, hey, maybe we should kick the tires and see if he's interested in coming back, what it would take to come back. Because he might not have any interest in it at all. He might enjoy playing overseas, even if he's bouncing around, and that's fine. So they should keep an eye on him. If things were to break right, they should bring him back. I'm not saying break the bank for him. I'm not saying like a record transaction like for Wehan. But we need to score more goals, and he scored goals for us pretty consistently.
Yeah, I mean, in his time here, he did have 14 goals and 30 appearances for us. Looking at what he did since he left. Bengaluru FC over in India, 4 appearances, 1 goal. And I'm going to butcher these Israeli Premier League club names, I assure you. Maccabi Netanya. According to Wikipedia, he had 31 appearances and 5 goals. I mean, again, this is Wikipedia, so who knows? Hopefully that's sourced somewhere. And then the second Israeli Premier League club he signed for was Hapoel Nof Galil. I don't know. I'm going to butcher them. According to Wikipedia, 0 appearances, 0 goals. So, is he a guy that can come back and potentially produce? Yes. Will he want to? We don't know. Will he be a fit for what the new manager wants to do? We don't know because, hey, we don't have a manager yet. So, yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from as far as keeping an eye on him, but from my perspective, I don't think he's someone that we want to like tab to bring back. And it's a shame because I liked him. I like Kev. He had a lot of passion for it, and so I just don't see him being part of the solution going forward. So, all right, so let's take a look. What's next on our list? Oh yeah, the club has been announcing their season awards as they've done every season so far. So far this week, we have seen the Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and the Newcomer of the Year. Those have all been announced. I got an email. Jacob didn't for some reason. I don't know why, but as media, we were given the opportunity to vote on these. And so I voted in the media vote. I did not participate in the fan vote. Jacob, did you at least do the fan vote? No.
No.
which is surprising because I think it's either you or Earl that brought it to my attention that there was something wrong with the vote.
It was Earl.
Showing that like Cello was leading in everything.
Yeah, it was Earl. I was aware of it, but when I see what happens is you guys have these conversations when I'm at work and I can't do anything about it, and then by the time I get home I forget. So yeah, I never did anything, but I will say that I have agreed with the results so far.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, the first two that have been announced this week, Offensive Player of the Year was Bees, Defensive Player of the Year was Austin Yearwood, and newcomer was Alex Tambakis. And I put my media vote out on Reddit today because I was waiting for the club to start announcing, because they were initially supposed to be announced before the final home match, but they didn't for some reason. I'm not sure why, but they're getting announced now. And so, yeah, my media vote, I voted for Bees for Offensive Player of the Year. I voted for Austin as Defensive Player of the Year. Alex was my newcomer. And then I put, there's 3 more coming up. One is the team club MVP. I voted Bees there. And then the Humanitarian Award, I voted for Daniel Bruce because of his work with Good Blokes Jogging this year. And then for the Somos Unidos Award, I voted for Mike Azira. Now, honestly, I think the last two, Humanitarian and Somos Unidos, could have gone either way between those two for me. I feel like with the Mike Azira Foundation, that he would have been a really good vote in terms of the Humanitarian of the Year award. And then I could see people voting for Brucey for the Somos Unidos because Brucey puts in a shift every single night out, and then the work that he's been doing in and around the community has just been a lot, and I think he really exemplifies what this club is about. And so that's where we're at. And I didn't have any problem with the 3 announcements as they were. I think those kind of 3 were expected.
So real quick on year 2, I think I would have switched Bruce and Azira. I feel like Humanitarian Award, Azira, like you said, I mean, it's picking nits between the two, but with the Somos Unidos Award, I feel like that is more local, or should be more local, and the Good Blokes Jogging was a local thing. Azira's Foundation, while being a incredible thing, it isn't obviously focused on New Mexico per se. So how to switch those just out of name, the name of the award, and the location of what those guys are doing for the most part. I know Good Blokes Jogging is in England as well, but still. But as far as the 3 coming out, I struggled to even think of any other candidates for any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Offensive Player of the Year. Tenari for his assists, like Moreno.
You can go Mondo maybe. Yeah,
he missed too much time. Rivas was great and then disappeared, and then great and then disappeared, and then just stayed disappeared for the whole last month of the season, basically. Dev, I don't know. I mean, it was Bees by I mean, how many goals did he have for us? 10, right?
10,
just for us. He had 10 goals just for us, and he played in half of the games, roughly.
Yeah.
I mean, and nobody else was with who's next? Like Mondo with 5?
Mondo, Dev, and Sergio each with 5.
Like, really, guys?
Yeah.
And then you look defensively. Kalen is an option. But things are going to stick with me with Kalen this year, that in a negative way, and that is we saw him kick the ball to the other team, which directly led to a goal, at least twice, and probably should have been a couple more times, but somebody was able to rally back and prevent them from scoring. And most of the time, the person who was rallying back to prevent it was Yearwood. So Yearwood was a runaway there for me. Tete performed well. Schmidt performed well. But Yearwood was just, I mean, he put in the minutes, he put in the work, and he was just constantly performing for us.
So you wouldn't have voted JPG as your defensive player of the year?
No. Club MVP? Maybe, because when we finally stopped playing him more, things turned around. But no, not defensive player of the year.
Okay. Yeah, the conversation that runs on the Reddit has been, on these three. Really, there was a lot more conversation on Bees' announcement. And one of the comments that was made was like you said, Bees came in halfway through the year, still became our top goal scorer. I wonder if that says more about him, our new offensive. I wonder if that says more about him, our new offensive signings, Illich and Rivas, or the team in general. And so, before I give you my response to this, what do you think it was? Was his performance more about Bees, or did it say more about the other signings, or just how the team in general played?
I don't think it's either or. I think it's a bit of both. Today, we like to do this. I'm gonna get on a little soapbox here. We like to do this with everything in the world nowadays. It is one extreme or the other. It is all this or none of that, or all this or none of it. It's just it's never down the middle, which is usually where the truth lies, is somewhere in the middle. I think Bees is a hell of a player. I think he is MLS quality in the right situation. I don't think Orange County was using him correctly, and their attacking prowess had more weapons that were actually producing. I think Bees coming over here and performing like he did with the same players around him as basically everybody else. I mean, whose spot did Bees take?
Basically he took
you can't really figure it out because it's like everything rotated around him. So all those players that you're asking, oh, is his performance because these guys disappointed? Well, he was still playing with these guys. Like he was in there with Illich there at the end. He was in there with Dev before Dev got hurt. He had Rivas, Tenari, Cello, everybody but Swartz basically rotating around him there in the attack. And before him, nothing was happening. After him, everything was happening, at least for the most part. So it was disappointing without him. Those guys weren't living up to their hype or their name or anything like that. They should have been performing better, and they weren't. But he was still having to use those same people around him, and he still performed. So if I had to lean one way, I'd say it was probably like 60 or 60-40, 70-30 Bees and his just brilliance. But yeah, that it's, to me, it's a dumb question just because it's like, yeah, the team was underperforming. Bees came in, and they took off. Like it was, everything clicked better with Bees in there. He played a role that was missing.
Yeah. My take on it was that I felt like it said more about Bees than it did lack of performance or anything from anybody else. And the reasoning for that is, we talked to Troy, and Troy said that, Bees has an understanding of this system. And so, bringing Bees back, and we've talked about it, ad nauseum, and, Bees knows how to play within this system. So he was able to find spaces and make things happen that we weren't seeing from the other guys. And so Bees was able to take advantage of that. When we first brought him in 2019, he was a known quantity. People knew who he was. It wasn't like some newcomer, coming up out of high school or college, and he took the role by storm. So I feel like this is just him showing just what he can do and his footballing IQ. And so I feel like it had a lot to do with him. And I think he exceeded what anyone could have expected him to do with the time that he had here in this season. And then, talking about Illich and Rivas, I feel like Sergio had a really good season. Like stat wise, he had a career year. Most goals in his career. I think he had most assists in his career. I'd have to double check that. But Rivas had a good year. And I feel like he was at his best. And it came that match after we talked to Casey, where Sergio was coming out of that defensive mid position and was able to push the ball forward and push the attack, which is something that JPG can't do. It's not something that Mike Azir is going to do. And so while Sergio is listed as an attacking mid, if you look at his Wikipedia page, and I think he's listed as attacking mid over in like Transfer Market too, I think just using him in that role really showed what he was capable of. And he wasn't necessarily always going to be the most contributing person at the attacking end, but he did plenty.
I think he still played an attacking midfielder role, even when even when he was in there for Juan Pablo Guzman. I mean, what we did was we just took a defensive mid and replaced him with an attacking mid because our defense, for the most part, solid, and didn't lose a whole lot with Rivas in his place. And Rivas still was able to turn and attack and do what he does, just from a different position on the pitch, basically. And I liked it a lot better. But I just think that what I hope, what I meant to say is what I hope is that whoever we bring in, since Bees is signed, can look at that and say, okay, Bees in Orange County. Okay. Bees in New Mexico United. Fantastic. So take what he did best for us and keep doing that, and don't try to do something different with him, like maybe Orange County did, and just keep him doing what he does best, and hopefully those numbers can even go up next year. I would like to see. I think in a perfect world, what I would like to see though is Bees' goals, like goals per game and goals per match, drop. And say he's with us for 34 games. Maybe he doesn't get 20 like he was on pace for this year with us, but maybe he gets 12, 13, maybe a few more. But I would like to see his assists skyrocket, and I would like to see somebody up there, Kevon, Haji Berry like player. I know Haji Berry's under contract still, but somebody like that is a finisher up there, and have Bees work with him and get. I need to look up. I need to do some research before our next show, but I want to know when Bees moved over here and started. Not those first couple games when he was coming off the bench, but once he took over that full-time role, how many goals did he have? What percentage of the team's goals did he have? Because I imagine it had to be over 50.
I think you're accurate.
I don't know for sure, and I that's a lot to look up since we don't have good stat websites for me to do it on the fly right now. But I would like to see that number go down to like 25, have a striker that may be at like 50, and then the other 25 be from, Moreno and some others.
Yeah, we definitely need more production from more guys. Well, you know what? Let me strike that. We had production from a lot of guys. We just didn't have consistent production.
Yeah.
And because you look at our stats, our stat sheet this year, I think we had something like 11 different people score goals, 12 different people score goals. I'd have to double check the number on that, but yeah, so we had a lot of different people score goals for us, but no one was consistent enough until we brought Bees back. So yeah, there's still definitely work to be done. And you talk about those stats. We can definitely look those up and have those for the next show. But yeah, Bees made just such an absolute difference since he came over, and I'm glad we have him under contract for a couple more years. And it'll be interesting to see that, like you said. I hope the new coach doesn't, try to drastically change how he's used, try to like force him out wide again or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things that came out of this, still a lot of negatives. And it's easy to look back and say, hindsight 2020, maybe if Ilitch had gotten more time, maybe if we hadn't tried to do this and all these kind of things. But, I definitely think Ilitch didn't get enough time. But, who knows what would have happened if he had been like that regular, like rotation guy in there and gotten more than, 5-10 minutes a match.
We actually had 14 players score goals for us.
Yeah, it's somewhere in there. Yeah,
which is crazy, but you look at like Yearwood had 1. Mm-hmm. That's a little fluky. Ryden only had 1. You might expect a couple more from him, just on set pieces. Azira got 1. You don't expect that from him at all. Salih got 1. You don't really expect that from him at all. Isidro only had 1. I feel like I think he had more in the preseason. I think he had like 3 or 4 in the preseason.
I believe you're correct on that. Yeah, that one that he had was that fluky goal against Monarchs.
Yeah, Monarchs. Yeah, off the free kick. But this is what bothers me. So you had Brown with 2, Ilitch with 2. No, sorry, Ilitch with 3. After all, Bruce with 3. Brown should have been more, but that's a whole other story for a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But those 3 attacking players just, unless you have somebody that is just going crazy, then those players need to score. They just need to produce more. So,
and to answer your question about Cello had 3 in the preseason.
That's what I thought. So we didn't talk about. So we talked a little bit about alternate choices for defensive player of the year and offensive player of the year. Is there anyone at all remotely close to newcomer of the year other than Tambakis? I mean, technically Weehan is a newcomer.
Technically, but no, because Alex Touche saw very few minutes. Brian Brown didn't have any impact whatsoever. Ilitch had basically no impact as well. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, Cello, he played well, didn't really produce much of anything.
Rivas is really
Harry Swartz, but he was out for half the season.
Yeah, I mean, Rivas is the name that probably, other than Tambakis, is probably like second.
Mm-hmm.
And he really, I mean, he had 5 goals. He had
5 assists. No, hang on, that's goals.
I can't find assists on this.
Sergio had 3 assists.
3 assists. So he contributed 8 goals. I mean, that's not necessarily what you want from a player that you thought was going to be contributing a lot to this club. So, in fact, 3 of those assists, 2 of them came in that match that we talked about. No. Maybe he just had 1 in that, and then he had a hockey assist. So I take that back. I could be wrong there. But nonetheless, just not what you wanted.
And so to this comment here, I feel like Moreno could have been a contender. I mean, he played well enough for most of the season, but he wasn't as productive as we would have liked. If you watched how he played, and don't get me wrong, he had a great year professionally, with the national call-ups and all that, and for offensive player of the year, he wasn't consistent enough, and so between missing time for the national team call-ups, not that that's a bad thing, that's great for him professionally and personally, but he just wasn't productive enough. And after he came back from that first international break, we talked about how he looked indecisive with the ball. And I think he spent a fair amount of time getting himself into trouble, in the final third and not being decisive or taking opportunities that were presented to him. And he was trying to do too much, look for those perfect shots. And so, I mean, yeah, I don't have a problem with him being in the conversation, but looking at the productivity as a whole, I definitely think, B's far and away, like, just, is the choice was the choice here.
So Moreno didn't record an assist and had 5 goals and only played, you know what I want to see?
19 appearances.
I want to see minutes for those two. But I don't know. Do you know if Wehan's minutes here are, they have to be everything?
Yeah, the stats are combined because USL Championships website is not good enough to do that. I mean, we could probably go back and we could go back and figure that out, but
that's a lot.
Armando had 1,365 minutes.
Wehan probably had close to that, if not more. I mean, he had 2,500 minutes total. That's just about double Moreno. And I feel like he started every match for us except for like the first one or the first couple that he played in.
Sounds right.
And so I feel like he had way more playing time for us than he did over there. So, I mean, there's a chance he's sitting at like 1,400 for us. So he played more minutes, but for the sake of my argument, we're going to say pretty much the same. Maybe he had 100 more minutes or so. But he had 10 goals for us. I don't know if his assist came with us or not, but he had 4 on the season.
I think he had 2 with us. I could be wrong, but
so he had 2 more assists and 5 more goals in, say, 200 more minutes, possibly. I mean, that just that means Moreno was not nearly good enough to beat out him, and I think Moreno has the talent to be an Offensive Player of the Year candidate for us. Just wasn't this year. I don't think he played very well when he was with us. I think he started off well, but when he came back from that first stint with El Salvador, ever since then, I did not like how he played.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about throughout the season, how he was playing and just his form after coming back and how we wished that we could have seen more from him. And I feel like before he tore the ACL, like he was kind of getting back to where we thought he was going to be in terms of creativity and link up play. And so, seeing him lose out on the rest of the season and what's potentially going to be a lot of next year too is going to be tough. But looking at the Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, yeah, it's Austin hands down. I mean, you could probably put Rosh up there as second, but yeah, I couldn't give it to Kalen this year. And Justin played pretty well at times, but I just feel like of the defensive players, Austin had the biggest impact of all of them, and I just don't think it was even anywhere close.
Yeah, no, it was not by any means.
So yeah,
for reference, last year, so 2020, Moreno had 1,236 minutes played, so less minutes played than this year. But he had 1 more goal. He had 6 goals last year and 4 more assists. So he just was not the same player this year for us. And so I would love for him to return to 2020 form, even with us, and then have Wehan be on his terror of a pace for us, and then have a striker up top with them. I think that could be a fantastic attack. But we need that one player up top, and we need a little bit of depth because we're going to miss players for one reason or another throughout the season, and that was one thing that I feel really hurt us was we just lost all our depth this year.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, because Troy likes the smaller roster, and we get that, whatever. But Yeah, it's just, I mean, injuries hurt us, national team call-ups hurt us, and so we just didn't have the depth to deal with that, especially at the end of the season. And so, we've talked about it before. Hopefully next season we start to see some of these academy kids start to come up and get more first team action, adding some depth there, signing some guys here in the offseason. There's a lot to look forward to, a lot of things that we're going to be talking about over the coming months. And as next season gets underway, we'll have a lot more to say about that. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. And I know I'm deeply saddened by this. Jacob, you are too. El Paso is out of the playoffs, and it's heartbreaking to see that happen to such a club that that we love and enjoy talking about so much. Like my heart just breaks for El Paso. So
yeah, I had to mute him there because I was about to throw up, if I'm being honest. But no, I just thank God for Oakland, man. Oakland and RGV. I need to send you guys some flowers, maybe some chocolate, something, because you made my weekend last weekend, and yeah, I don't even care about the playoffs anymore, because as long as those two teams don't win it, then I don't care whatsoever. So Phoenix and El Paso there, their season lasted 1 week longer. Whoop-de freaking do.
mm-hmm.
Unbeaten at home. I for consistency with my argument, I will say that Phoenix had an undefeated season at home, because I feel like a PK shootout isn't necessarily a loss. It would be a draw. So for them, congratulations on your undefeated season at home that resulted in 0 playoff wins. And to El Paso, suck it, because you guys lost at home, and I think you deserved it. You guys were in terrible form going into the playoffs, and yeah, I feel like karma, especially you look at Jerry and Mike Vandersploosh on Facebook. Anyways, was Vandersploosh active on Twitter too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they were complaining about the refs or something.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Karma comes back and bites you in the ass every time, guys. You talk so much crap. The Karens. Oh my gosh, the Karens. What now? What now, guys? Come sit on the couch and watch the rest of the USL playoffs with us, because that's where you guys are at.
So you weren't on the show last week, but Earl and I were here, and we talked about it, and Jerry was in the chat, and we gave our predictions for the USL playoffs. And Earl, for whatever reason, had San Diego going all the way and winning the cup. I don't know if you knew that or not. And then, Jerry, of course, had El Paso winning if the final was in El Paso, and them losing if it was in Louisville. And so, yeah, Jerry's bracket is busted. Earl's bracket is busted. Who did you have going all the way?
Oakland, of course. No, I'm just kidding.
Oakland.
I didn't actually go through the episode, go through the exercise. Trying to do it without the benefit of hindsight. I probably would have been busted too, because I probably would have said Colorado Springs, more so with my heart than my head, because I would not say El Paso, I would not say Phoenix, I would not say an Eastern Conference team, just because I don't know them as well, and I like to root for the Western Conference, unless it's Phoenix or El Paso in the title. And so I probably would have said them or San Antonio. I feel like San Antonio is playing really good soccer right now. And I maybe would be like, hey, let's throw Harry a bone Harry's a great guy. He's been on the podcast a couple times. He co-hosted with you one time when me and Earl were out, and I know what that team means to him, and I know that him getting a championship, while I'm sure he would talk a little bit of shit, would not be near the level that El Paso or even Phoenix would. So I wouldn't mind have picking him. So, but I mean, we've talked about my love affair with Colorado Springs all season.
Mm-hmm.
I've liked them all season, and I would have liked to see them do something. And I don't know how they lost that Orange County game. You're given a gift of going up a man with 30 minutes left, or 30 minutes in. Sorry,
yeah,
with an hour left, and you can't score, and you have Haji freaking Berry on your team. Like that just.
Yeah, their attack was just stifled.
Yeah,
I mean, they just couldn't do anything. And I know that Orange County did kind of sit back, after the red card, but they still played well. Orange County played well. They didn't look like they were, getting out of shape. And so, yeah, it was, I had Colorado in my bracket beating El Paso in the semis. And so, I was more than pleased to see El Paso lose to Oakland. And Jerry thought I was insane for picking Colorado over El Paso.
I probably would have picked Phoenix, El Paso, San Antonio, and Colorado Springs.
Yeah,
as my bracket, and then I, out of spite, would have had San Antonio over Phoenix and Colorado Springs over El Paso, and probably would have had San Antonio beating Colorado Springs because I like their form a lot more. So that's probably what I would have done without trying to not look at the benefit of hindsight. I mean, I feel like I say that would have been my 4, and 3 of those 4 aren't there. So I feel like it's pretty obvious that I'm not using hindsight in my favor there.
Yeah. So looking at the clubs that are left, Oakland and Orange County, who do you think is going to win that matchup there?
I have no clue, dude.
Okay.
Like, I think conventional wisdom says Orange County, just because I think everybody, including myself, wants to say Oakland. That was a great win. You pulled it off somehow. It was kind of a miracle, but eventually, the clock strikes 12 on Cinderella every time. But Orange County did not impress me whatsoever. Even though they won, that I was more disappointed with Colorado Springs than I was impressed with Orange County. But I don't know. I'd have to look. I don't even know how they performed against each other this year or anything. So, you know what? If we're making what's the word I'm looking for?
Predictions.
That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. If we're making predictions from here on out, I'm going to say Oakland. Why not?
All right, there you go. May as well. So just so you know, Orange County did beat Oakland 4 times this year.
So what you're saying is Oakland is due.
Yeah, Oakland is. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, I think that's gonna be a fun one. Like of the matchups this round, I think that one's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. I didn't have either of these teams advancing past the first round. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. I can't wait to see that one. I think Orange County is gonna walk away with this one. I actually took Orange County in the Pick'em or the Survivor pool that USL Pony is doing over on Twitter. So I took Orange County this round. I took Tampa Bay in the first round. And so yeah, the other Western Conference matchup, San Antonio RGV.
I have no clue, man. I love the way San Antonio is playing, but then I look at RGV and they just went to Phoenix and beat Phoenix. They beat El Paso to get in, essentially. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've won 4 in a row, 4 must wins, mind you. If they'd lost any of those, they would have been out the way it played out. So, I mean, their talent's kind of shining through, their attacking talent specifically. And I just think they're they're a feisty freaking team right now, and they're not afraid of anybody. I mean, I don't see how you'd be afraid of San Antonio when you've played them 4 times already, and you just beat Phoenix in Phoenix. I just don't. I don't know how you can count them out, but I can't go a 4 versus a 4. Can I? Can I? You know what? Now, for Harry's sake, I'm going to pick San Antonio. for Harry's sake.
Yeah, RGV is a tough out. They really are, and they've been playing really well the last few weeks. San Antonio has been playing better the last half of the season, and so it's going to be an interesting. This again is another interesting matchup. I think this is probably number 2 on my watch list this weekend. I want to see what happens here. My brackets in the other room, I don't remember who I had. I want to say I had Phoenix coming out of this one. But San Antonio versus RGV, I like San Antonio here. San Antonio playing at home against RGV. I think they do it. San Antonio is pretty healthy right now, so that's what I think is going to happen out of that. And then over to the Eastern Conference, Tampa Bay Rowdies get to face a very well-rested Birmingham Legion after they advanced due to their match being abandoned due to multiple positive COVID tests within the Riverhounds. So Earl, Jacob, what's your take on this one, Tampa Bay and Birmingham?
It's going to be interesting to see what happens there with Tampa Bay or with Birmingham not having played last weekend. I look at the East and I see Birmingham, Tampa, and Louisville as all fairly even. And so I mean it's really kind of a coin flip there. I mean, you look at the regular season standings and they finished. Tampa Bay was 71, Louisville was 61, Birmingham was 60. So that you look at that and you go, oh well, Tampa Bay is clearly the better team, and I do think they are the better team. Their conference was also, well, I was going to say terrible, but then I look at the Central Division's non-playoff teams, and they were also terrible. So I don't know, man. To put a pick on paper, I'll say Tampa Bay because I think they deserve a chance at at a championship after last year's was taken from them.
Yeah, I had Tampa Bay winning this one as well. I did have Birmingham coming out of the first round. I didn't expect it to be this way, but I did have Birmingham going here and losing to Tampa Bay. And then the final semifinal matchup, Charlotte and Lou City. I have Lou City winning the whole thing. So obviously I have Louisville winning this one.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably right. Charlotte had the same amount of wins as them during the regular season. Charlotte's been the surprise. Louisville has faltered in the playoffs, or faltered last year in the playoffs at least. It is in Louisville, correct?
Yes.
So just because of that, I think I will go Louisville. I am pretty sure their home record was pretty good this year. Yeah, 12-2-2 at home this year. So because they're the ones at home, I will give it to them.
Yeah, if this was in Charlotte, I'd probably go Charlotte because they were 12-1-3 at home this year. So yeah, it's I think home field advantage is definitely playing a bit of a spoiler here, or a bit of a not spoiler, but
factor.
A bit of a factor, yeah, here in the playoffs so far, which has been nice to see. I know
you say that, and then you look at Phoenix and El Paso, and
yeah, exactly.
Man.
Yeah, but Oakland, Orange County won at home, San Antonio won at home, Tampa Bay won at home. So yeah, I mean, home field in front of people, in front of fans, has definitely been a factor this year, I think. So,
and
all right,
and for the record, if what I say comes true and it's Tampa, Louisville, I will have Tampa winning that one. And if it's San Antonio, Oakland, I will have San Antonio winning that one.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, man. So, yeah, I don't have anything else. I think that's all we had for tonight. And we hadn't talked about it yet, but I was going to mention to you guys tonight. I was thinking that we would take Thanksgiving week off. No show that week. We'll come back the week after Thanksgiving and recap the USL Championship final. So
I am down for that as long as nothing pops off. I think we get a coach before Thanksgiving. So if that happens anytime before Thanksgiving Day, I am down to do a podcast for that. But yeah, other than that, I agree. We can do that for sure. So we'll be here next week, not the week after.
Yeah, we'll be here next week, week after no show, and then we'll be back after Thanksgiving. And then we'll likely do something similar in December, take off Christmas week or something. Maybe Christmas and New Year's week, unless there's major developments or something. But anyway, yeah, I think that's might be what we're gonna do.
Last year we started doing every other week.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that when we talk about that off air, and we can figure it out more in depth later. But we will be back next week. We'll probably be here every week, with the exception of Thanksgiving until the end of the playoffs, and then we'll see what the schedule brings from there. But I don't think I have anything else either.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it. Thank you guys so much for joining us here in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Some new names in the chat tonight. Hope I said it correctly, Shania, earlier. If I'm wrong, please correct me. We'll love to make sure we have that right. But thank you guys for being here. And Jacob, get us out of here.
Yeah, much like he said, thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating. We like having questions. It feels like it can derail the show sometimes if it's off topic. But I'd rather answer your guys' questions than stay on a outline of what we're doing. So keep them coming for sure. We should be back next Tuesday unless life gets in the way like it did this week. But we'll keep you guys posted on Facebook and Twitter if there are any changes. And so just hop on whenever we do go live again. The plan, like I said, next Tuesday, 9:00. Hopefully all three of us will be here, and we can dive into some things. Maybe we'll have a head coach to talk about, knock on wood. Hopefully that's the case. Want that to happen sooner rather than later. And then, other than that, guys, be careful, be safe, be good to people, and somos unidos.